Hey there, it's Megan, and we are going live to sew the Paddington top. I don't even know who we is. I just automatically say we. I'm going live on YouTube to sew the Paddington top with you. Hopefully you have your pattern downloaded, you have your instructions handy. If you'd like to see what the finished top looks like, that is it. I'm hoping you can see it. It's a good one. It has these nice puffy sleeves. It has buttons down the back. However, y'all know I know how much I love buttons and buttonholes. These instructions say that most pattern testers can fit this over their head without buttons. So this pattern, we are skipping the buttons. We're still going to do a button placket and have the two sides overlapping, but I'm going to skip the buttons and the buttonholes because I have made it before. The head hole is plenty big to not have buttons, and it's a roomy enough shirt that you can just slip it on over your head. All right, so I do want to say this. I am making mine out of a slightly stretchy fabric. Mine's a thick, that doesn't have a ton of stretch, but I'm using this. If you don't have a ton of sewing experience, just use a woven. Just use quilter's cotton or linen or something that doesn't have a lot of stretch. I just happen to have this really beautiful kind of pumpkin-y stretch that I spent more than I usually spend on for fabric, and I want to wear this fall, so I'm going to make it out of this. I will be using a slightly zigzagged stitch when I sew it. You're just going to use a straight stitch if you're using a woven fabric. So let's get started. First up, I want to say that on these live streams, I do them where we cut the fabric together. In the Me Made wardrobe classes that I teach, I ask that you come to class with it cut out. And I'm always there if anybody needs any, extra help before class to do that. But usually the instructions will show you the best way to do it. But for these free live streams, I am going to show you how I'm cutting it out. And if you're here watching live, hello. I see Christelle is here. Hello, bonjour. And my husband is here. My faithful husband is tuning in. And my sister-in-law is here as well and has said hello. So thanks for watching, you guys. And Catherine and Christelle are regulars in the Me Made wardrobe classes. So it's nice to see them here as well. All right, so I'm cutting out my pieces. There aren't a lot of pieces. The three big ones are the front, the back, and the gigantic sleeves. The back is a cut 2. I still have it on a fold just because I lined it up with the front, but then I'm going to cut it into 2 separate pieces. The front piece here is going to be cut on the fold as one big piece. All right, so I did cut it out a little bit differently than they showed on the suggestion. Because I have wide fabric, I moved where the fold was so I could have a bigger piece of extra. They kind of staggered it. Do whatever works for you. I like this because I get a bigger leftover piece that I feel like is easier to do something with later. So I am going to use scissors because I don't like to rotary cut on video classes because I'm afraid I'm going to slice my finger because I'm thinking about a lot of things while I'm doing these. So I stick with the scissors. You can see I'm just doing it fast, but it doesn't matter a whole lot. So there's my back. I will cut it in two in just a second. Keep your patterns nearby if you're making this with me, because we're gonna have to mark some things in a second. All right, again, I've got my fold is sort of moved over, and look, I had it lined up at the back. Since the front is narrower, I'm gonna even be more conservative with fabric and adjust where that fold is. Yeah. So now I have this gigantic piece of leftover, and my front is on the fold. All right. I'm just gonna repin that in a few spots and cut the front. All right, so the front I was gonna say that the front has a dart, but it sure does not have a dart. So we don't have to worry about marking that. But the back has a piece we're gonna mark. I don't know. I feel like it's always good to sort of cut your fabrics out and leave them attached, at least with one pin, to the pattern so you know what it is. Now, with this sleeve, because the sleeve is so wide, you actually have to cut it differently. So I cut this off from the rest of the pieces because my selvage is here and here. So I'm folded so that I'm folded a different way than I was folded when I cut the front and back. Really simply put, just follow the grain line of each of the pieces. So the grain line is up and down. So that means this arrow has to be parallel to the selvage, the edge that's not cut. So I had to fold it a little differently so I could get two sleeves cut at once out of this really gigantically wide piece. So I'm going to turn it around so I can cut it. And again, I'm looking to kind of cut in a way that I have more left over. All right. Such a big sleeve, but that's the beauty of this pattern, is these nice puffy sleeves. Okay. Okay, two sleeves, a front and back, and then we also have the facings. Now, the facings need to have interfacing on them. So here's the difference between facing and interfacing. Interfacing is this kind of stiff stuff that you are going to iron to pieces to make them a little bit more stiff or sturdy or thick. Like the around the neck edge, which is the facing. So the facing is sort of like the thing that goes into inside of the, oh, Nora, my niece Nora said hi. Hi, Nora. It's going to go inside of the shirt. So if you look at the line drawing, it's the little piece that's going to go inside of the neckline. So that's going to be interfaced, so it's going to be a little extra sturdiness there. And then the other part is going to be this back spot at where the buttons are. I'm going to show you how to put that in. So if y'all decide to do buttons, that'll be there. I guess I don't really need to do it since I'm not going to put buttons in mine, but I will show you how to just put the interfacing in there. And if you want to know how to do buttonholes, I just suggest Googling buttonholes and then your sewing machine model, because doing a buttonhole really depends on the machine. And obviously you can use your manual as well, but the beauty of YouTube is that someone somewhere has made a video of how to make a button on your sewing machine. I'm sure. All right, so here are my facings cut out of interfacing, but I don't have them cut out of fabric yet. So I'm gonna undo that and undo this and make some fabric ones. Get this out of the way. So I'm just gonna find my scrap fabric, and again, you always want to get the direction of the arrow with parallel with the edge of the fabric. So let's see. I'll go over here so I don't use this big chunk. So my arrow has got to go here, parallel with the selvage. So I'm just going to fold it over to where I can get 2, because this one is a cut 2. So that looks like a good spot. And then when you take the interfacing, you're going to open it up. The good side is going to be face down, and then the interfacing gets, you have to kind of puzzle piece it. There we go. Back onto the wrong side of the facing piece, and that's going to get ironed. I'm going to just pin it for now. So that facing piece is done. This is garbage. Same goes for this one, only this one is going to be on the fold. So it's as if this is your line that you want to match up and be parallel with the selvage, because it needs to be on the fold. So do the same kind of thing. Bring a fold of fabric so that it's about as wide as your piece. Uh-oh, I don't know if it's going to be big enough. Oh, just barely. Okay. Then that's going to go on the fold, parallel with the selvage. My selvage is right here, so we know it's parallel. If that's making sense. If it's not, shoot me an email, and I promise I'll explain it better. Oh, Viviana's here from Puerto Rico. Hi, Viviana. I hope you're sewing one of these too, or will. All right, so there's the front facing. And again, we want the right side face down, and then facing onto it's looking a little wacky, huh? I'm not too worried about it. I'm gonna pin it on, and then if there's interfacing that's hanging over the edge of the fabric, I'll just cut the interfacing, but I guess it's, there we go, it's working. Okay, I will iron it, but probably I will not show it because my little ironing board board is over there and I don't have a camera on it. So facings, have interfacing, those are cut. All right. The biggest thing about these live streams is that I forget to look at the instructions as I go, and I just sort of do it, and then I end up doing it wrong. So let's look at the instructions. Okay, I've interfaced my facings, and then they want you to do about a 1-inch strip of interfacing along the back. So thrown my back somewhere. There it is. And there's a little spot here where it says fold line 1 and fold line 2. So the interfacing is going to go like in this little box there on each of the back pieces. Problem is, I've not cut them into 2 pieces yet. That's super easy to do. I can just scooch this out of the way and cut down the middle. And then I'm going to put a strip of interfacing along. So there's my wrong side facing up, and I cut little strips, and I don't know about you, but I save every little piece of interfacing because I can use it in situations like this where it can be pieced together. So right now I'm just going to pin it. There's like a little 1/2-inch spot that's not interfaced, and then a little, and see here where I'm piecing it together, you just want it to like overlap a little bit so that when you iron, everything is covered. And I'll iron it on in a second. Got a nice long piece here. Same spot on the other one. So I just want to, while I'm doing this, remind you, if I'm going faster than you're going, even if it's a live, you can pause it and, it'll be slightly lagged. So don't be afraid to do that. Christelle is asking about interfacing weights, and that's a great question. It really depends on what it's doing. I'm not super picky about interfacing weights. I happen to have a pretty stiff one here, and for what I need it for, I think it's fine. It might be a little bit stiff for the neck. But as far as this is, I think, meant for woven, but I'm still using it because it's what I have and it's what I grabbed. There is interfacing that's meant for knits that you can get specifically if you're using knits, and it'll probably, it'll stretch with the garment a little bit more. But because I'm putting this on the neckline, I don't want the neckline to stretch out. So I'm okay with having interfacing that doesn't stretch right here. And for this, same deal. Everything else is going to stretch, so that's fine. So those are my feelings about interfacing. As far as lighter and heavier, you don't want super heavy bag interfacing when you're making a garment. But again, I'm very much I'm not going to not make a project because I don't have exactly the right interfacing. I'm going to try to make it work with what I have. So I'm not super picky, but they make all different kinds of interfacing. So use your discretion, play around with them and see what you like. But if you need the interface part to stretch, then get stretchy interfacing. I don't think stretchy interfacing stretches that well, though, to be honest. It has more give than what I'm using, but hopefully that answers your question. But Christelle, you know me well enough to know that I'm a little use what I have kind of person. And I'm missing a little, oh, here we go. I knew I cut enough. So yeah, I don't want it to overlap a lot because then that'll be way too thick, but I do want it to overlap a little. So I'll do that. Can't really see what I'm doing. I'll move it here. And then I'll just cut off the extra. Okay. So that's my back. Those are my facings. I'm going to put all of that aside for a second and grab the instructions. Now, oh, that's just, you take your front. What's funny about this pattern, oh, I know what it is. Okay. So if you are doing a larger size, there is a dart in the bodice. Mine does not have a dart in the bodice. I can't remember what size I'm doing because I cut this out a long time ago, but I don't have a dart on mine. So I am not going to do the dart for the live stream. If you are doing it with me and you're totally confused by how to do a dart, reach out. I will help you with it, but I don't have it on mine, so it's not going to work for me to demonstrate it if I don't have one. So here we go. So there's no, all right. So the first thing we're going to do is take our front and unpin everything and open it up. And I love the way the sleeves are sewn in this because everything is flat. And we're gonna open up the front, put right sides facing up. I know it's hard to tell right side versus wrong side, but I'm gonna put right side up. And then I'm going to get my sleeves and I'm going to match up my sleeves with my front. Now, this is a great reason to have your pattern still handy because we've got to match notches. And since I never cut my notches, I have to look on my pattern piece. So here are the notches on the sleeve piece. So then we know that this side is going to get matched up with a notch on the front. So I'm going to match that up that way when I pin it together. So let me take the pattern off. And I'm going to stick a pin where this notch, doesn't even need to be that the notch matches up. It just means you need to have this side lined up with the front, or the part that's pinned has to be lined up with the front. So undo that. And okay. So it's pretty easy to line up. You've got this curved edge and this curved edge, and look at how similar they are. Yay. So be really diligent about getting the edge of the fabric to line up. Grab your pin cushion and pin. I put like 2 in and then I'll pin the other end, right? And then I can kind of, if there's any little extra, I can kind of make up for it. Here. And then everything fits together. So it might have to be eased a little bit when I sew it. So that's that side. Then this is my right side. So, no, this has got to be the way that, yeah. Because my notch from my front is here and it's going to line up there. Okay, So same thing over here. Pin this end, really making sure that your raw edges are lined up. And then I always go back and do the other side, pinning. And even if your fabric's not stretched, do this because there's still ease in the fabric, okay? Somehow I have skipped over the step. See, this is my problem. I always end up skipping the step. Yeah, the stay stitching. I totally skipped over the stay stitching. So let's talk about it. I'm not going to go back and do it. But you can, actually no, I will, since I haven't sewn anything. I will go back and do it. Stay stitching is important. Don't skip it. What they want you to do is just sew along the edges of the curved parts. So I'm going to keep what I've pinned because I can still get to these little edges that I need to stay stitch, because it's basically this edge, this edge, this edge. So I can stay stitch these 3 separate edges very easily. And then on the back, I can stay stitch that edge as well. So let's move on over to the sewing machine camera and see if I can wake that up. There we go. And they're very specific with their stay stitching. I've seen patterns where they don't care what direction you stay stitch. This one's very specific. So on this middle front piece, it wants you to start on the edges and stay stitch into the middle. So I will do that. And stay stitching isn't sewing anything together. It's literally using like a 1/4 inch seam allowance to, no, I'm just gonna do it with a straight stitch. And I'll say roughly the middle's like right here. Stop, pull it off, and then do same thing from the other direction. The little tiny curve from the sleeve is here. I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm going in the right direction, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to do one of each. What am I doing? Oh, this. All right. So now I've stay stitched at least my sleeves and my front. I'm going to repin the ends here together that have sort of come out, so I can sew the seams that I pinned. And I am going to put on a zigzag because I have stretchy. If you are not using stretchy fabric, don't even worry about it. I don't want that zigzag, I want this zigzag. Little narrower. You have a serger. You can always go back and serge these edges, but not necessary, especially if you're just getting started. You could zigzag the edges, trim them, zigzag them. You could just leave them. Don't worry about it if you're just starting out in sewing. I have so many things that I made when I first started that, yes, gasp, they have raw edges that are all crazy looking on the inside. And it's okay. My sleeves are sewn to my front, so let's make some sense of this. There it is. My front is right in the middle. I've got my sleeves. I've got lots of threads for my stay stitching. So now I'm going to stay stitch my fronts. Fronts that have interfacing on them. We're gonna stay stitch this, which is barely even curved, but I will be a good person, a good sewer, and I'll stay stitch that, and I'll stay stitch that. Right here. Okay. So going back to straight, I'm going to sew right over the interfacing. There's one. Cut them apart. All right. So the next instruction is saying to mark. So we're back on page 13. And it wants you to mark the fold lines. I just want to talk about these fold lines for a second. I've placed the interfacing a 1/2 inch from the edge. The interfacing is 1 inch wide, so that's one fold line. That's a second fold line. So I am not going to mark mine. I'm just going to iron it and pin it. Okay, actually I'm just going to pin it. So there's one front. I'm going to get them both here. So even though I've not ironed the interfacing, it's just going to get wrapped up inside it. And it's going to get sewn. So we don't have to worry about it too much. Okay. So fold, fold. This is the top. Sorry I'm turned, but it just works better for what I'm doing right now. So I'm turning the edge under and making one big fold. So then this way there's no raw edge inside. You're kind of tucking the raw edge in and pinning it. Sometimes when I do this, I'll skip around because it kind of makes my fabric pull taut better, if that makes any sense. Tuck that. And you can go grab your ruler and, make sure this is even as far as how wide this placket is. this placket that we're not going to use. But if you decide you want to do a placket, you could even do a placket of snaps or partial snaps, or I don't know, hook and eye for the back could be kind of cool if you wanted to open and close. So, all right, cool. So I'm just eyeballing it. I'm happy. I mean, it definitely got a little wider as I went down, but is it going to make a huge difference in how my shirt looks? I don't think so. And then the next thing is to sew where all those pins are. So I'm just going to do the same thing over here. One little fold, one bigger fold, pin. Little fold, big fold, pin. I'm really kind of excited about this project. I did a live stream on Tuesday. I have to say I wasn't as excited about that project. I think I picked it in the summer. It was just super summery, and I don't know, the one I didn't love the fabric, but this one I'm very excited about because I love this fabric and I love this top. So this is going to be a good one. So if you're making it with me, please, please, please make sure to show me how it comes out. Tag me on social media or send me a picture in an email, because I love to see the things that everybody makes. All right. Pretty good. Oh, this one wants to not be wrapped up, so I'm going to make it be. Funny that this shirt and the shirt I did in the last live stream have these like button pockets on the back, which are sort of funny too that you don't even really need them. I guess it's a nice design detail, but at least I get to learn how to do it. All right, so there are my two little plackets that are going to be overlapped to create the back. So if I turn it this way, maybe it'll seem more like a top. And then the other side of the sleeve is going to get sewn here, and then it's going to be like a giant, almost like a giant four-petaled flower, right? So I'm getting ahead of myself, but let me sew this first, and then we'll move on to sewing the front and the back and the sleeves together. All right, back to a zigzag, a super narrow zigzag. Well, as narrow as I can go here. So I'm slipping it under. I definitely want that to be. Okay. So I have very little turned over, and you can see it's like slipping out. So as I sew, I'm just going to kind of hold it. And I'm staying right on the edge so that where it's tucked under, it's going to stay under. Just always stop. Make sure you're adjusting. So this is where having an interfacing that doesn't stretch can be tricky, and it starts to get a little bit bunched up, but that's okay. Just don't let it keep pushing ahead. Sew over these little gathers. You won't see them on the good side, and you just don't want to keep like pushing them further and further down. So sew over them as you go, as you encounter them. Yeah, it's really doing it a lot. The end. I'm gonna pull it off. Oh, I do have some puckers there. Wow. That was a bad idea. So I can go back and pick that out. I also just don't, I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Look at how consistent it is too. It's literally like every 2.5 inches. I guess it gets bigger towards the end. So if you're working with stretch, that might happen. If you're working with woven, that's not gonna happen. But I'm gonna leave it for now and try to do a better job on the other one. Let's see. So I'm starting in a little bit. I'm wondering if that's gonna, if that might help. I'll go back and get it. This one's not doing it at all. Didn't do it at all. But I am going to go back and get this beginning, and I'm going to do it by flipping it. Let's take a look. That one looks great. This one looks super wonky. Oh my gosh, I wonder if it's because I pieced it. No, this is the one I pieced. So maybe it was better that I pieced it. Well, you know what? When stuff like this happens, and it happens all the time, and yeah, I'm not a perfect sewer by any means, and I don't think anybody needs to be, so glad I can show you what imperfect sewing looks like. But anyway, that's when I would go, I think I'll make that one on the bottom when I sew them together. You can still see that. And honestly, if it starts to really bug me, you can also just pick this little, and then you could kind of spread it out as you sew it. I'm not gonna worry about it today. It doesn't bother me that much. So now we've got to sew the front and the sleeves to, oh my god, I'm gonna wear this shirt so much, I can tell already. I just love this fabric. Okay, so the little slidey side matching up with the little slidey side, and we're gonna pin it together. And then I just make sure the end over here matches up, and then get everything in between. Great. Same over here. The slide matches the slide. This is some fabric I got when I was in New York a month or so ago. Oh yeah, end of September. And I went fabric shopping at every opportunity I could. I did a tour in the garment district and we went fabric shopping, and then I found this really great new fabric store in North Bergen, New Jersey, and I think this is where this is where this fabric comes from. It's called Fabric and Fabric, and it's, oh my god, just this like luscious jersey that doesn't roll. It's thick and warm, and I love it. I bought it in a bunch of different colors, and I have some things that I've made from it already, and it doesn't shrink and it doesn't pill. Oh, it is so good. Okay, so I'm gonna sew that. A little bit more head on here, there. I've got a zigzag, but I'm gonna make it, yeah, not as spread out. I'm using about a 1/2 inch, slightly bigger maybe, seam allowance. Back stitching because it was a really short stitch, and I think it's fine without a back stitch, and I don't want it to get all caught up in there. That one I knew would work, so I did it. Okay, so now that I've got my little 4-petaled, this is the neck edge, right? This. And then the facing is going to be almost exactly the same size. This one goes, does it go down? It goes like that. That is where the pattern piece comes in handy. So that's the fold. And then here's my pattern piece. Oh boy. Oh, there it is. Huh. Why don't I read the instructions? With the right sides facing each other, pin the shoulder seams at the front and back facings together and stitch. So, how do I know? It's not super clear how that goes. Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna look at the shape of, yeah, that's the correct way. So it's like these notches are the opening, and that's gonna go there. So where did that one go? Here it is. So I have it incorrect. There we go. Oh my gosh, what is going on, Megan? There. That didn't confuse you enough. There we go. Hopefully that helps. So now I need to sew them together. So, right side's facing. I have not ironed my inner facings on like I said I would. I don't care. And they're going to get caught in the seams when I sew them now. And they're going to be just fine. There and there. Okay, goodbye facing pattern pieces. Let's sew it. One and two. Okay, now get back to the overhead camera, and we're gonna lay that on the neck edge of the shirt. And oh my god, I did it again, you guys. I totally messed you up. I did this too soon. That's okay. I'm going to lay this on and start to pin the facing edge to the edge of the shirt, the neck edge of the shirt. It's like I'm not capable of just following the instructions. But since we already did that, I can show you a quick fix. You can take the end of the facing and fold it, just fold, even if it doesn't go all the way. It's weird that it's not going all the way. Let me see. I don't know how it's centered. Yeah, I don't. And kind of fold that, line it up with the finished edge here. This raw edge to line up. This pin out, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to fold over this edge, match it up with that. Unpin the rest. I am so annoyed that I did that because I knew it was happening and I wanted to be ready for it, but still, of course, I jumped the gun. Okay, but no worries. We fold it over that edge, we fold it over that edge so that when it goes inside, this will be finished off. So the next step is to sew the inner neckline of the facing to the shirt. And that is being done on step 11. The whole thing is just completely the wrong way. So, you know what? Don't even look at the directions right now. Just do what I'm doing. Okay. A little thick there, but you shouldn't have a problem sewing over it. Sew a curve like this, make sure that the curve stays curved. Don't straighten everything out as you sew it. Keep it curved. Sewing over my pin, that's okay. And every time I stop, I want to make sure my needle's down. Keep going. Sure we do is this is all going to go inside, right? So we want to finish the edge of the facing all the way around, and there's a trick to doing this. We're going to put it back on you already have it on a straight stitch. I'm going to put it on a straight stitch, and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to bring my needle over so I can sew pretty close to the edge, and I'm just going to sew along the edge. So this is along the edge of my facing, and then I'm going to use this seam line that I'm doing as my fold line when I press. To make sure that the facing edge is finished. that's my 1/4 inch, and then that is going to be my guideline for when I hem the edge. It makes the hemming a rounded edge a lot easier. So if you're at home, once you press along here and get that to fold in, okay? I'm just gonna finger press it and sew it. But it's a nice trick. It's a nice trick too if you're hemming like a circle skirt or something, to sew this 1/4 inch seam and use it as your fold line. So, like I said, I'm just going to sew it, starting to close the edge. There we go. And I'm gonna press, finger press, and sew as I go. See, this edge is now nice and finished. Thanksgiving color. Maybe I'll wear this to Thanksgiving. Keeping things tucked. That is thick right there. I'm gonna try to not break a needle right now. There we go. Got over it. Oh, shredded my thread though. Got over the bump, but it shredded my thread. Oh yeah, look at that. See how that shredded? So it happens when things are super thick. You can kind of shred the thread and need to thread your needle again. Alright, I'm going to start right here. Tucking. There's my hemmed facing. That's gonna get all tucked inside. Let's go back to the overhead. I think this is gonna be gigantic. Okay. Neck edge. so many threads. Tuck it under. I'm gonna just pin the heck out of it. I don't think I'm gonna top stitch around the neck. I might go in later and tack it with some hand sewing. I am gonna sew it here and probably right here so the ends will get sewn, but I don't think I want to top stitch around the neck. That is totally up to you, especially if you're using a woven. That will look fine. I'm afraid to do it with the knit because I don't think it will look nice. But if you're feeling like it's really thick and you don't want to take a chance, then you don't have to. And like I said, you can just tack it in some key spots. Sometimes the neck edge looks better if you don't top stitch it, even on woven. So I'm going to just get this so you can kind of see what's happening. There. Done this part, I'm going to start over here, get the second, get the other end. Where are we at with time? 1 hour and 7 minutes. This is going to be a longer one. Don't have a ton left, but longer than my other one. I'll come from the outside. And, you know, obviously you can press this with the iron. Definitely recommended. You're still sewing with me, let me know. If you're like, oh man, I'm gonna save this for another day. That's cool too, but just curious if anybody's still sewing with me in live. Snipping some threads, looking at my neckline. I'm gonna stick another pin right here. Not bad. Oh, maybe I'll stick another one right here. Okay, so if you look at it from the inside, the other things you could do is you could tack it by hand, or you could just do it on the seam allowances, and you could just do like a stitch on the seam allowance. Here, 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 and here, and then the ends, like I said. I think that is what I'm gonna do. But I will tack that later. Because the reason you want to do that, because if you don't sew it down, it's just gonna pop out. But I don't want to go, like I said, around the whole thing. Now, oh, Catherine's still sewing with us, with me. But she did something with the sleeves, so she's a few steps behind. But that's the great thing about this is you can do it whenever you want, because this video will be on YouTube. And it looks like Viviana's cooking and is gonna sew it later. Yay. All right. The next step is taking the whole thing and like basically taking the sleeve part here and folding that in half. So you match the seams here and put a pin in it where the seams match up. And then you pin these bottom of the sleeves together over here. Pin, pin, and pin. Do the same thing on this side. I like to, again, put the seam to the seam, pin, and then get the bottom of the sleeves together. Okay, then you have to get this, so I'm gonna flip it over and put the head at the top. There's the head hole. Here are the bottoms of the sleeves. The sleeves are looking ridiculous, kind of like these bell sleeves that I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. It's really ugly, I think. But these sleeves are gonna wind up having elastic in them. So they're gonna go like that, which I think is really cute. But I've got this pinned. Now I need to take this side of the shirt and pin that. And then we're gonna sew that whole thing, the bottom of the sleeve, down the side of the shirt. Same over here, match up the side of the shirt. Pin, 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 and pin. Okay. Let's sew that. I still have like a weird piece of interfacing sticking out, so I'll cut that. Okay, I'm gonna start here and go all the way. Is like a weird angle at the beginning of the sleeve. Make sure you still sew that weird angle. It's going to be where the elastic goes. So here's the seam that we pinned together. Keep that together. Doesn't really matter which way your seam allowance goes. Happening. There we go. Okay. Same thing. You know what? While I'm here, I'm going to sew a little facing down. super thick. Ugh, you know what? Maybe I'll just do it right here where it's not as thick. A little messy. I'm okay with it. Yay. Okay, now the other side. I think I'm just going to start at the bottom of the shirt. Oops. Everything else out of the way. But I finished sewing. Let me rethread before I forget. So, you guys that are still with me and you're commenting and that you're way behind. So you know what? I'm gonna reach out to you because it's funny because you've all taken my classes and this isn't what I do in my classes. It's different because I kind of wait, and make sure that everybody can keep up, and if people are faster, I'll wait. And I feel like these YouTubes where, these live streams where we're not all actually on Zoom together are very different from my classes. And I'm doing them because I want to promote my classes, but I don't know if it's doing my classes a service. Anyway, you don't have to comment on that now, but think about, as far as these compared to the classes, what you think, because I don't know if this is going to help show people, hey, come take my class, because this is so different. But that being said, it's something I've been thinking about. All right, back to sewing. So we've got our sleeves now, these crazy balloon, soon to be balloon sleeves. Now they're just bell. Remember when bell sleeves were like popular? Was that ever a thing? I don't know. I don't think I was too into it. But, like I said, we're going to take that. Oh my gosh, I don't have my overhead camera on. I'm just blabbing away. No overhead camera. So, yeah, bell sleeves becoming balloon sleeves with the help of elastic. And apparently there's a chart to show us how much elastic goes into the bell sleeve. But I'm just going to do this based on what I find to be comfortable. So we've got this much fabric. We want it to kind of come in, but we also just want it to be comfortable, right? So take your elastic. You don't want it to be like tight on your arm, but you want it to be kind of brought so that they're brought in. So I'm going to say right about here is where I'm going to cut it. Maybe a little bit of extra, right? And then, holy cow, we've got to get that much, we've got to get this much elastic. I folded it in half because this is a round. But this gets shrinks our sleeve to about here. So I think that's going to be about perfect. So like I said, you can look at the chart at the beginning, or you can just wrap a piece of elastic around your arm, and you can see it's not tight on my arm at all. I have another shirt on, but it's way shorter than the fabric that's in there. So that's going to give you a nice balloon effect. So I'm going to cut my second piece of elastic. This is 3/4 inch elastic. Use what you have, because you can just make the channel based on the channel for the elastic, based, you know, as wide as your elastic. So if you use thinner elastic, make your channel thinner. So I've got 3/4 inch elastic, 3/4 inches wide, and which is 2 centimeters if you need centimeters, because this cutting mat is centimeters. When I create my channel, I'm not going to worry about the raw edge. I'm going to make sure that I have enough room to sew so that my elastic can be flat in there. So the channel, grab a little ruler here, is 1.5 inches. So it's just about double. So 3/4 of an inch for the elastic. Channel is about 1.5 inches, and I can sew it and still have plenty of room for it to go in. So take the elastic out, use your ruler to fold it as much as you need. In my case, it's going to be 1.5 inches, and I'm going to fold that and pin it all the way around. If you don't like having the raw edge here, just account for turning your raw edge in as well. I'm not going to worry about that. That's too much. I skip around, especially when it's a curved edge like this, so that I can kind of have a little bit of overlap. So if you've got some extra, you can kind of overlap it like that, but there's no overlap on the outside that you'll see. And who cares? Oh my gosh, I'm turning it the wrong way though. Oopsie. Turn the edge of the sleeve towards the inside, please. So this way. All the way around. You can see if I sew right where the pin is, the elastic fits right in there. Kind of create a little overlap here. That is okay. This is a little bit not the same size. Feel free to just trim to even that out. I try to show you guys these things just to say, you know, everything doesn't need to be perfect. I want you to sew and not worry about everything, you know. Okay, there's that one. If you're unsure it's gonna fit, just spot check it. All right, so I've pinned that entire sleeve on that side. I'm gonna do the same on this side, about the same amount, 1.5 inches for my 3/4 inch elastic. A little bigger right there, even that out. Okay, I am going to sew these, and I'm still going to do it with a zigzag, but I'm going to change the zigzag to be super narrow. Yeah, like that. Maybe even a little less. There, a little more narrow. I'll show you what I mean as soon as I sew. Because I don't want it to be taking up the precious space that I need for my elastic. So, I'm zigzagging because mine's knit. You're using woven, you don't have to. But I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't like go over into the space that the elastic needs to go in. Before I forget to do it, I'm going to say it out loud. We have to keep about this much open so we can insert our elastic. So I'm going to stop sewing at the pin. Pull it off, and I've got a nice big area where my elastic's going to go. I'm going to do the same thing on my other sleeve. Doesn't matter where you start. I'm just starting wherever. Again, I started here, so I'm going to set my pin to remind me to keep this space open. So that's open. All right, this is the fun part. Take our elastic pieces and find a large safety pin. Oh boy, where do I have a large safety pin? Oh, here's one. Oops. So take the end of the elastic. I always put the safety pin like that, just so the safety pin doesn't fall off. Tuck that into the channel that you just sewed and start pulling it through. Get it? So the elastic is laying flat, and then scrunch it up, pull it through. Scrunch, scrunch, scrunch. Pulling, it's like you're pushing the safety pin, and then that's pulling the elastic. Now, this is a gigantic amount of fabric, so don't lose the end. I'm gonna kind of start being really careful to slide the fabric over, but like not lose the end of the elastic into my sleeve channel. It starts to go away. I can pin it. I think I'm okay. Still got quite a bit. Now, where your seam is always going to be a challenge. You have to kind of figure out, there we go. I kind of play around with the safety pin to get it past the seam allowances of that seam. And then keep pushing the safety pin till you get to your opening. If you're afraid, you're gonna... Ooh. If you're afraid you're gonna lose the end of the safety pin, you can always like pin it. But I'm back through. I'm just gonna be really careful when I start to pull this. Not to, well, it's all kind of scrunched up. I'm gonna put the ends of my elastic together, and you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my safety pin, ouch, and safety pin the ends of the elastic together while I try to unscrunch some of this, because we want to make sure that the elastic is laying flat and not twisted anywhere. And by putting the safety pin on it, it can't get stuck inside. Oh my gosh, these luscious, luscious sleeves. So I think it's flat. So I'm going to unsafety pin it. I'm going to sew back and forth on the elastic and then sew the little channel closed. Doesn't matter if it looks messy. There we go. Lay it on. Find where your opening is. And stretch so it's flat to connect the opening. There we go. Okay, let's take a look here. Oh. There's the head. There's the sleeve with the beautiful elastic. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. I just keep looking at this because I'm trying to figure out if I should. I'm gonna hand tack it later. Okay. Safety pin, second elastic, going in. You know what? I'll cut my threads before I even start. Where am I? An hour and 36. Okay, I'm good. I was hoping to be under 2 hours today. Looks like there's a few people still watching. Okay. Putting the safety pin and elastic through, trying to keep my elastic flat. So I was talking about the classes, and I guess I just wanted you to know that if you are thinking about joining us for a class, the ones that you pay for, you know, I encourage you, because they're small, and we're there together. And I know it sounds like weird to think, can I help you with what you're doing wherever you are? But if you set up your sewing station in a way that I can kind of see what you're doing, we're all doing it together. So I can troubleshoot. You know, you can obviously ask questions in real time, and we, you know, talk together. It's like we're sewing together in person, and almost in a way, it's better than in person because of the video. Like, you can see pretty closely what's happening. Whereas, like, it's funny when I teach in a in-person class, you know, especially now, nobody wants to get close to each other, so they don't want to like crowd around and see what's happening, and so you can't see as closely. Whereas on these virtual classes on Zoom, you know, the setup is the same. I have this overhead camera, I have the sewing machine camera, and then a head on if I need to talk or show you something on my body. So it's a really great way, you know, if you're like, and the projects are a little bit more challenging. I tend to pick projects that, you know, you would need maybe a little bit more help and you can learn something from. So just wanted to make that clarification. If you're watching live, or if you're watching the replay, definitely go check out the classes we have coming up. And if you have requests for classes, oh my gosh, let me know what patterns you want to see. I love to support the indie patterns. If there's something that you saw and you're like, oh, I really want to make this, but I'm not sure I could just do it on my own, let me know and I can make it into one of the Me Made classes, because I haven't done the January schedule yet. I'm finishing up a closet core pattern for the Callie shirt dress tomorrow night. Have the toaster sweater, which is like, oh my gosh, my winter staple. That's coming up. I'm excited to make a couple more toasters for the winter. But yeah, if there's stuff that you see and you want a class for it, let me know. Okay. I was just snipping some threads. Now I gotta go back and I gotta stop talking and I gotta go back and sew this. So, sewing machine cam. Sew the elastic together. Cut my threads. connect where I had sewn. Sew at the opening. Snip and snip. Okay. So, boy, we're in the home stretch now. I'm going to pin, starting at the head and working my way down. Sorry, it's upside down, but it's just the way I'm grabbing it. Oh no, I want the other way around. I want that underneath. I'll turn it. So this is where you would like put the buttons in the buttonholes, but since it's not needed, I am going to pin them together and then sew them together. I don't know why that one is so much longer. But this is so weird. I don't know why. It's the same piece. Probably has something to do with how much was folded up there. So that's okay. You wind up with a bottom that's uneven. We can fix that. Oh, it's also because of these puckers. That's why. I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to draw, if you can see my little white pencil there. You have to do it so it's kind of gradual. There we go. Cut that now, because then I'm going to hem. There we go, that's better. Leave that unpinned at the bottom. And then we're going to just fold up the bottom. But I'm going to do that trick where I sew at the 1/2 inch. Since this is a rounded hem, I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch. For this one, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch all the way around. And then I'm going to use that straight stitch to fold it for the hem. So let's go do that. Straight stitch in the center where it belongs. that I'm going to use as my fold line. So I'm going to go back, get back into a zigzag so I can hem it. So folding it on the stitching line, I'm going to hem the bottom. Back. There we go. It's such a great way to know that you're folding the right amount. Do the hem. Dark outside, so my camera view is very dark. Okay. Oh, my overhead is still pretty good. Okay. So let's look at the hem on the. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so heavy. It's cold here, and this is going to be a warm yet stylish shirt. I might even put a little turtleneck underneath it. I'm excited. Okay, so the neckline is still kind of pinned because I am going to hand do it. It's thick and I just think it's going to look way better. So I will do that for you. But the first thing I want to do, where are we at? 1:49. I've got 10 minutes to make this under 2 hours. Okay. I'm going to sew the back. I'm going to skip right here because it's so ridiculously thick on mine that I think I'm going to hand sew that part as well. But I'm going to start right about where this red pin is and sew the back shut because I'm not putting buttons on, but I'm leaving the back kind of overlapped. I might even just leave this open at the top and stick like a hook and eye or a snap right there. That way, if my if there's any doubt that my head will fit into the head hole, that'll make sure it will fit. So yeah, that's what I think I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start here and leave this open. Okay. So, ooh, I ran out of bobbin. Look at that. Got another one ready to go. Oops. And it's a little bit tricky to get to it because you can't sew it to the front, obviously. So you've got to make sure you're underneath. I'm zigzagging. And I'm going to reach underneath and make sure that I don't sew the back to the front. Good. Still making sure. I'm good. Not sewing it to the front. It's getting some puckers. It's really okay. My fingers dangerously close. Oh yeah, I've sewed my finger. Whew! Alright, that's sewn together. Leaving that open. I'm gonna sew this. No, I'm gonna hand sew that. I'm gonna sew this where this pin is. Okay, I've got 5 minutes of hand sewing. I know you're pretty excited about. Oh, there we go. Okay, so grab a hand sewing needle. I'll grab a nice big one so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm gonna take it straight from my sewing machine. Bring the camera nice and close. Doubling my thread. Okay. So what I was talking about is that I want this flap of facing to stay in, but so I want to sew it to the inside, but I don't want to see the stitches on the outside of the shirt. So the trick is to sew it to the seam allowance. So I've got a seam allowance right here, and I'm just gonna do a couple stitches just just gonna do it fast. So that just tacks down, but you can't tell it's sewn there from the outside. So we've got 4 stitches, tie a knot, cut it. And now I can remove these pins. I've got another seam allowance right here. Same thing, go up through the seam allowance and through the facing. Take that out. And, oh shoot, I'm rushing. What the heck did I just do? Oh my gosh. Well, you get the idea. I'll fix it in a minute. There. Let's see. Do I have any seam allowances here? It's not a whole lot of seam allowance in the front. So I would just really press it so it's in for the front. Got one there, and then I'm going to put another one here. Hopefully that'll keep the front from popping out. You know, if it does, I don't know. I guess it'll be okay as long as I press it. Let me grab my thread again and rethread my needle. So I'm so excited to try this on. I know it's gonna fit because I've made it before, and I will post on Instagram tomorrow. I haven't posted a sewing project that I'm wearing in a while, but I'm excited about this one, so I will wear it and then post a photo on Instagram so you can see it. Oh, there's my dryer. Can you hear that? It's done. Okay. There we go. And then I'm going to do one more right here. So I've got 4 tacks to keep this facing in. That should be enough. I probably will go back and just hand sew that, but let's look. Yeah, it just needs to be pressed. Okay, let's back that up. Oh my god, you guys, it's all this fabric. I swear, it's so nice. It's just, it has a mind of its own. Just good quality. I'll find the fabric. Oh, that needs to be dealt with. Oh, that's good. Okay. I'll find the link on the Fabric and Fabrics. They do have a online store. I'll find the link to these fabrics because they're amazing. It really just has such nice body. Glad you guys like the top, and would love if you've got any feedback about these YouTube lives, let me know. And yeah, can't wait to try it on and take a photo, and I'll show you all on Instagram. Thanks for being here. 2 hours and 1 minute. Yay. I will see you guys in the next class or in